Well, welcome to the Diff Stravaganza. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Is this your first Stravaganza?
This is the very first Diff Stravaganza. The very first. But, I mean, it is really cool. So what we do here, it's a little different from your typical video podcast interview. Instead of talking about all the boring stuff and those standard canned questions, we're going to talk about you guys, about Goodee, about your journey with the brand, what you love, what you've hated along the way, any great sort of insights that you would have for other people embarking on a similar journey.
Yeah, sounds fun.
Before we get started, I would love to start off with some introductions. Tell people about yourselves. You're so cool. Come on.
Well, for starters, we're twins, if that's not apparent. So
I did not know
you didn't
that.
notice? So that's
Who's older?
I'm older by 1 minute,
Byron.
59 seconds to be precise. He constantly acts like he's older, and he's the more wise and mature one.
So I was going to ask if you find like extra wisdom in that minute. You had to contemplate before, you realized you had a sibling.
He reminds me about it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was my peaceful minute in life. No, just kidding. We love being, we're 46 going on 47 years old, and we've been together side by side for the whole period. So it's really exciting, super exciting to have started another business together, which we just did about 7 or 8 weeks ago now with Goodee.
Okay.
And we're super excited to be with you guys and share our story.
Yeah. Dexter, can you give me an overview of Goodee World and your role at Goodee World and the inspiration behind it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so we officially launched Goodee a few weeks ago, but it's been something that's been in the works for well over a year. And so Goodee is essentially a marketplace, tagged as goodeeworld.com. And the whole idea behind, the premise behind Goodee was really to try to go out to the world and find these amazing, purposeful brands and partners and artists and artisans that were doing really amazing things that were not necessarily easy to find in the world. And so that was sort of the basis or the impetus for what we were trying to build. We knew that there was all this amazing stuff out there, but we didn't know, how to find it and how to curate it. And so that's what we set out to build.
And what drove your affinity to the specific set of product categories?
Early on, and Byron and I, we've been in design for the better part of 20 years in the design business and in the fashion business. And we really started to see early on that there was just so much product that was out there in the market. And if we were going to come to Goodee just to introduce more and more and more product, it wasn't something that we felt was either modern or something that, quite frankly, we were motivated to do. And when we looked through the lens of what is it that we really want to see? What are the things that we really want to surround ourselves with? That kind of led the path for what Goodee ended up becoming. And so for us, from the very beginning, it was almost about subtraction rather than addition. We said early on, if your house was burning down and there was only going to be a few things that you were going to be able to take with you, what would those things be? And that was kind of the impetus for what we tried to build with Goodee.
That's awesome. And so do you find now that when you look at your home, when you look at your world, has the process of, doing the product selection and building this amazing brand and platform that is Goodee World, has it become more aligned with your ideal? Do you wake up and look at your home and say, this is the world that I want to see?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that what I was saying before is, if you go online right now, it's such an exhaustive search to even find something that might even be something that you want to surround yourself with. Yeah. I mean, just think about the ages that we live in right now. You used to go 20, 30 years ago to your favorite local retailer, and that person or persons did a sort of a curation for you. Now, the world is your oyster. There's things available from everyone, and how do you make a good choice? And so for us, my home right now, and I think everyone's home, should be a little bit of an adoption of who they are. It should reflect who they want to be. And this is the place where you spend a significant amount of your time outside of the office. And so we're actually building for the office. We're building for the home. We're building for these environments where, you want to have these beautiful things around you, and we think it's important.
I am looking for some art for my home. I've got a lot of bare walls. It's like a lot of beige. Yeah. So, anything in here that you think I might be able to use to liven the space up a bit?
I feel like we're standing in exactly the great place to be able to do that. One of the things about, it's funny because Dexter and I have always looked at art as being so many different representations. We typically think of art that's framed on a wall, but anything could be art. Art is really, I mean, art into itself is usually some narrative or communication, an expression. And in this particular case, we were enamored by this UK-based but Turkish artist who's working together with a social cooperative in Turkey and creating these amazing rugs that could be used as area rugs, wall tapestry. We've presented them here. There's 10 different ones here. And each one was produced with a unique story. And that becomes really interesting to us as Goodee as well, too, is that, and Dexter was mentioning before about having these things in your home that have a deep story and a narrative. It becomes exciting if you have something that doesn't have to be personalized, but you know it has an individual and unique story. And in these particular cases, these artisans who are working it are telling their story as a narration through the craft that they're making. And it's just beautiful that could decorate the objects.
Raised objects, raised patterns.
Raised, gorgeous, right? And bringing color and life into your home as an art piece. And this could work in a kid's room, but it's so refined that this could be in any environment as well too, which is really, really exciting for us.
So you've come up with this vision for a good life, a good world.
Yep.
How do you take it from idea to inception? Can you tell me a little bit about that process? Because there's a ton of, I think, purpose and intentionality behind the way that you've chosen to build this entity.
Yeah. And I think it's a great question, Melissa. You know, early on, one of the very first things we did was we said, we can even go out to the world and attract all of these amazing human stories, these great people to work with, and these fantastic products, but we're also gonna have to make a direct connection to an audience that is gonna be looking for these things. And so, I think one of the very first meetings when we moved from high-level concept to how would we even execute a marketplace was this meeting that we had with Diff, and we kind of gave a grand idea that we had this vision of a marketplace that was ultimately going to be based around good design, but with social purpose, where every item that was going to be on this platform, every story that was going to be told on this platform was going to kind of live around three big ideas. One of them, good people, the other one, good impact, and the last one, good design. And we wanted to be able to create an environment where all of that can happen, where people can kind of come in a digital world and say, oh, I just learned about something that I would otherwise never have known about. And that was what we set out to build, and it was really the very first step that we had to make to try to make that a reality.
I think that's a great, you talk about this came together after you had some early conversations with Ben, who's our CEO at Diff Agency, and a big part of the ethos being, good people, good design. How has it made more complicated, the fact that you were trying to launch a marketplace as opposed to just a standard, your online store? What were some of the nuances or challenges, maybe even opportunities presented in that light?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's the number one thing that was kind of glaring was that we saw that we were representing two different audiences. On one side, we were there to try to build a platform for, I'll call it the makers or the artists and the artisans. So we wanted to be able to create an environment that was so powerful and had so much potential to be able to attract an audience that they would really want to be a part of it. And so when we launched with about 30 brands from 15 countries, 5 continents. And then you have this other side, which is the true aspect of a marketplace, this sort of two-sided marketplace, was we also had to be able to procure an audience. Like, who's the audience for this and how are we going to find that? That's the main challenge. It continues to be the challenge and the opportunity. Goodee sees itself in so many ways as a connector or an interloper between this maker and the people that are searching for these products. And I think that's, if we can do that really, really well, by giving a tremendous user experience, but also delivering amazing product on time with great value, then I think we have a really legitimate, environment and platform.
That's amazing, and I think anyone who's viewed the site, there's definitely no ifs, ands, or buts about the fact that it is beautifully designed. The user experience is wonderful. The selection of products is amazing. When I think about good people, good process, good design, how have you also created that experience for the makers?
Yeah. Well, I think from the very beginning, we thought that story was such a really important part. And you were telling your story before about, this sea of product and information and trying to make a good decision. We've always been curators, but we're super curious at the same time too. We travel the world 52 weeks out of the year. We have been for the last 20 years. And then I think our experience, a lot like others, is that you go to these places and then you find these amazing products and stories. And what we wanted to do with Goodee was to be able to tease out some of those great stories and then have them live alongside the products, so that it wasn't just about what we're selling and what the PDP was going to say, but also the story behind the products. And we wanted to get really back to a much more emotional, human conversation that also goes back to the earliest stage of these products and how they were created. And I think that, for me, very much speaks to the difference, that we're really spending a lot of time talking about why, not what. And I think that's really the differentiator between Goodee and a lot of other places and destinations online.
And in the same vein, so back to art, which is kind of maybe a non-traditional outlet or for art would be a skateboard. So some people might have seen this. This is a really, really cool company called The Skate Room. And what they've done, ironically, we're in Canada and all the skateboards are made in Canada, sustainably sourced from wood in Canada. But the particular thing that becomes interesting with them is they're working with living artists or deceased artists and using their art as a canvas for a product that lives inside your home. So we did here is we brought a series of the Basquiat pieces. So there's 5 of them on the platform, 2 of them in the pop-up shop here. We're big fans of Basquiat.
Well, he certainly had a lot to say.
He has a lot to say in terms of social justice. There's one of the things that's very important for us at Goodee as well too, in terms of representation, is that whether it's art, whether it's the makers, is finding this really strong balance of that we're telling stories about people from diverse communities, diverse backgrounds, gender balance as well too. So this is all in a broader speak. And what became really interesting with Basquiat, which was one of the earliest recognized African-American artists, is to take this, which is also strong, deep conversation pieces in terms of art, and bringing this into a kind of playful environment. The act of skateboarding, which is a very, and why the Skate Room exists, is that what they're doing is they're funding a NGO that allows training for youth and building skate parks around the world in developing nations, mostly in Afghanistan as well. And so what this is doing is teaching them the art of skateboarding and how this could help from a physical standpoint, but also from a social standing, and then at the same time bringing this art together. And it's really interesting if you could bring the message of an artist and a creator, bring sustainability together, and then add sport. It's a really, really cool narrative as well.
Okay, so can we go into more detail about your intended user journey? So right now, the way that the user journey on the Goodee site is laid out is content, community, and product, and these are very powerful words, right? Yeah. And I think you could probably make a case for putting them in any order, because they're so powerful and they're so meaningful. Can you talk to me about the intentionality of that user experience? Did you come to the idea with this journey in mind, or did it evolve? How did you think about sort of pulling together data and inputs to settle on the process?
When you're trying to think of how do you come to this, content, commerce, or community, it's such a tricky thing that we led with a human relationship. So there's no question for Goodee that it was about the products that we were going to be selling online. There's no question that it was going to be about the stories and the rich content that we were going to create, and then also how we were going to present these products and stories to be able to try to engage this community that's looking for these contents and products. And then our reflex was, where do you get started? And then afterwards, I remember it was Byron who said, I feel like we need to treat this like a relationship. And we need to treat this customer journey like there's going to be the first time you met. And then you don't just earn trust overnight, that we'll be building trust over time. And that we don't have to come into this thinking about a transactional experience. although transactions are obviously a part of our business, but we didn't have to look at this as a purely transactional business. And I think that led the way. Our very first conversation that we had with Diff really spoke to this idea to have this very human, connected experience. It's part of what that user experience is going to look like. And I think one of the things that we're extremely excited about is that although this is evolutionary, we definitely think that we launched with exactly that. So we met that challenge of really finding something that spoke to both that content and community and also commerce sequencing that does a little bit of all, but the opportunity going forward is to do them all really well.
And speaking of content, community, and commerce, I think brand pages on Goodee World are more impactful than how we think about traditional brand pages if we were to look at any other retailer that carries multiple brands, right? Typically, it's just, here's a brand's logo and all of the products. But it's a bit different on Goodee World. And so how do the brand pages reflect good people, good design, and good impact? So some of the elements on your brand page include about the author, causes they support, in addition to featured products.
Yeah, so we wanted to bring in a lot of the transparency of the hard work and curation that actually goes into the brand selection in the first place. There's this months of arduous and kind of rigorous process that goes into finding a brand. Why did we fall in love with the brand? And then the PDP pages shine if they're able to translate a lot of that emotional feeling and also the feelings that we have, because we know these founders, craftspeople, we know them well, we work with them every single day. And so we try to have that lift off the page, that you feel a sense of humanity that comes out of those brand pages, that they're more than just sort of copy and paste of what you will find in other places with images, that it has to have a much more deeper, more layered message to it as well too.
Awesome. And then aligned with on the brand pages, they do feature causes that the maker supports. What are some of the top environmental or ethical issues in the luxury consumer goods space that you are specifically trying to solve, or maybe that you're even most passionate about?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna say I'll speak about myself in a second, but one of the things we were really excited about when we treated this conversation was that there were people out there that were having conversations about what they were passionate about. And so Goodee lives to not just be a conversation about what Byron and Dexter are passionate about. It's a conversation about a lot of the themes that are happening in the world and then also in design. So we get equally excited about a toy company that's looking at how do you upcycle and recycle plastic from old kids' toys to be able to create, as we do about a social cooperative in Spain and Colombia that's looking at ways to solve new lighting solutions for lights that are made, in using recycled plastic. So I wouldn't say that there's one theory that speaks specifically to Byron and me or to Goodee. Goodee exists to try to inspire a conversation around people that are literally getting up every single day, treating what they create with the kind of discipline and respect for the future. And that's exciting for us, and it's actually the reason for Goodee, and it's why it exists in the first place.
And when you think about disciplined makers and the relationship with the new conscious consumer trend in retail, in connecting those two, I think human-centric came up a lot in our earlier conversations. Sure. And so can you tell me how you think about defining human-centric as that meeting point between these conscious makers and between these disciplined makers and the conscious consumer?
Yeah, I think that we're entering the stage right now where a select group of consumers are asking the people that create for them to just be more disciplined. When you're going through that whole creation stage, please look at your business in a more thoughtful way, in a more considerate way. And what's exciting for us is that we're meeting the people that have already adopted that kind of rigor. And the challenge for them is they don't necessarily have a voice or a platform to be able to share them. I mean, there's more than enough e-commerce sites out there for the people who don't, but for these people, there's not necessarily that opportunity. And so it's our opportunity, and it's also, it's exciting for us to be able to curate that for them.
And in terms of, you're not just curating products, you really are creating a community in e-commerce. And I think a lot of different brands and retailers talk about creating community. Yeah. What have been how have you guys approached the challenge of creating community in a different way? How are you guys doing it better? And what are some of the key indicators, for yourself when you think about, are we creating the community that we set out, that we had in mind?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, one of the first things we decided to do alongside the platform launch was also to launch a pop-up store where we are right now. Mm-hmm. And we saw from the very beginning that having this mix between a digital first platform, but also mixing that back to your conversation about, human connection and human touch, we needed it to live in the physical world as well too. We needed people to feel like, as much as there was a digital platform for this, that there was a physical platform where this conversation can also happen. Mm-hmm. We think of it kind of like the conversation pit, this place where people can come to be able to start these sometimes heavy conversations about whether it is about design or whether it is about impact and social purpose. And so that's been led the way for us insofar as how we treat that relationship. And it's something that we're really excited about.
It sounds like what underpins a lot of that is the sheer power in storytelling.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the power of storytelling on this journey?
Well, I think that when we're back into a conversation about value, we've moved into this idea of convenience. So, speed on site, how long people are sitting on the site, what the conversion rate is, and we've lost a little bit, I'll say, the value of the story and the value of where things come from. The value of how things are made, the value of how long things last. And so story gives us an opportunity to have a deeper, richer, more dynamic conversation about where things come from, and how they're going to live well with you. And so we talk internally about this idea of, having less but better. But to know what better is, it takes education and it also takes story. And so we present stories to make that stronger connection behind not just the products, but also the people that are making these products.
They're absolutely gorgeous. And speaking of stories and powerful stories behind products, this cushion, it is not only absolutely beautiful, and I want it on my couch, but there's a pretty powerful story behind it.
Yeah, I actually think it's pretty cool because a lot of people, when we're in this D2C space, there's all this conversation about having an MVP and having one product. If I make one product, what would it be? Dexter and I didn't really take that approach. We built a whole platform around these purposeful products. But what we did feel that the very first item that we wanted to make for Goodee was consistent with our messaging. And this message of a slower living, having things that give us comfort, things that surround us, that kind of add value to our lives. So in a funny way that a cushion is a conduit for that conversation as well too, from a functional standpoint. But from the product itself, which is why you're loving it and feeling it. This is a collaboration that we've made together with a division of the United Nations called Ethical Fashion Initiative. And it's so exciting. We actually just had an event in the pop-up last week with the UN officer who's leading this amazing organization for the last 11 years. And what they do is they're working together with artisans, social cooperatives on the ground and building capacity and opportunities for them so that these traditional crafts, techniques, could be not only maintained but encouraged in helping women to find employment on their own, having an independence, being able to support their families and also support their communities. So not only is this a profoundly impressive operation, they're doing beautiful work. So we had this opportunity to develop the fabrics together with them in Burkina Faso. So those fabrics are made in Burkina Faso. The cooperative, they're doing everything from working on the cotton, the weaving, and then all the color dyeing, and it's just been an incredible process to work together. Subsequent to that, we designed a very simple and traditional product, but then it has like two sides. So I'm like, but in one way, we're also just thinking about your home and if you want to update your environment, they're available in a multitude of colors as well too. Yeah. And then I was saying the fabrics, the pink in there, we've got some navy in there. Always thinking about your environment and how you could bring these purposeful items, but then they also add value to your life as well too. They're made in Kenya by a different social cooperative, but also a division of the Ethical Fashion Initiative as well too, who are doing amazing work. Dexter and I have had not only the luxury to meet the women who are making the fabrics, but then also to go to Kenya and meet these amazing workers who have these great stories. And they're not only learning skills, constantly, but they're showing us processes that we've not even seen, and we've been making products for many years as well too. So it's a great collaborative effort together.
You're really doing something that's very difficult, and I can't think of anyone else that is doing it quite in this way. So I'll say maybe no one else.
Well, that's
Which means that you guys have really sort of taken the brand by the horns and have navigated it in this amazing direction. When you thought about the technology that would support this initiative, this brand, was there anything specific about the Shopify platform that, as you were thinking about, we want to build something that's never existed before? Do we build it custom? How do you evaluate other platforms out there? What was it about the Shopify platform that, I guess, instilled that confidence that this was the right tech stack for you?
Yeah, I think that very, very early on, we understood that technology was going to play a role in powering Goodee, but that this wasn't a technology-first company, that ultimately we needed to find partners that were going to help us amplify the technology that we were able to produce and grow with. And so Shopify, I think, and Shopify Plus specifically, helps make us better at understanding what our customers' needs are. And so we spoke earlier about helping customers make better choices, that ultimately the brand promise of Goodee is that we can help you make better choices. And then when you take a lot of the dynamic data and that we are able to bring in through our relationship with Shopify and through the Shopify technology, it just helps us help the customer make a better choice.
Mm-hmm. I love that, helping the customer make better decisions. In what ways have you seen that, I think, impact the broader community around Goodee, elevating the conversation to making better decisions?
Well, I mean, it's still early. I mean, what we talk about, and one of the first conversations we had with Diff, I remember we were sitting with the team, and they said, "How many people do you want to have on the site?" And in the beginning, we said, "Listen, this is all about finding our right audience and finding the people who actually can't find this anywhere else." And that's our opportunity right here, is to build something that is actually, frankly, not available in the market. And so every single day that we're at it, we're constantly just trying to find this audience. We're trying to build slowly and build trust slowly. But at the exact same time, we want to be able to measure our growth and how we're doing.
Absolutely. And how do you think about building trust, and how does that trust factor into the sort of the broader brand promise and your relationship with the makers, and then you have the conscious consumer? How do you weave those trusting or opportunities for trusting experiences throughout the experience?
Well, we start, as I said before, Melissa, we start really early in the ideation stage and in the relationship stage. So we start with building these lasting relationships. So I think where we probably become a little bit different than some of the other marketplaces is that we make a tremendous investment in our partners, in telling their stories, in sharing their stories, and in helping them grow their business. Our goal, or part of our goal, is obviously delivering better choices for our end consumer, but it's also to create a platform for our partners. And so from the very beginning, for us, it was super important that we understood how we can help drive their business. And then afterwards, what we continue to do is just try to build that through for the audience, so that they can really feel that these companies and these products and these makers are growing with them.
Is there any one maker story that I think that is top of mind or most compelling for you when you were first launching with your first group of makers?
Yeah, I mean, there's an amazing story. 2 young designers, fresh out of design school. Byron and I were in Paris. We were looking for the brands that fit, the Goodee lifestyle. And then we happened on these 2 people, Vanessa and Joris. They had just started out this brand called Birdie, where essentially, and I've got 2 young girls, one's 6 and one's 9. But they take old plastic toys from schools, and then afterwards they've said, instead of using new plastic, they're taking existing plastic and then they're creating new products out of it. And it was so amazing because here were 2 young design students that were taking another direction. And then we said from the very beginning, how will these people even grow their businesses? They can't be amazing at supply chain, design, sales, customer acquisition, marketing, social, and all of these other things. So here's a couple amazing young artists and designers. How are they going to be able to get their story out? And that was really the impetus for Goodee. And I still think to this day, I mean, when you look at Birdie, I think it's a brand that speaks to the future. So I'll just tell the full story. I mean, they take the old toys, they triage them to put them into all the different colors, and they make these new toys out of them. But you still see the little specks of plastic. So kids will see that products have circularity. So we're not having this deep conversation about circularity. But when you see the product, you understand that this was made from something, and it's actually recyclable to become something in the future. So imagine when 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds are sitting on these chairs in their homes. The future that they see for themselves will include circularity. We don't have to teach it to them. They will have lived it. And that speaks to what I think is already coming. Our vision for Goodee is to accelerate that a little bit, to inspire the consumer and also the makers that are out there to say, wow, you can really do something that's really great design, but it can also have impact as well too. So we're challenging that idea, and I think it's something that's why we get out of bed every day, and it's why we do what we do.
So, I mean, Dexter, you and Dexter were talking about Birdie before, and what becomes really interesting and true and consistent to what we're looking for in terms of the people and the partners that we're working with at Goodee is that they've taken it beyond just the product. Mm-hmm. So in this particular case, we're looking at a design item that we are in love with because this is using all recycled toy material to create and craft a beautiful design piece. It wasn't just, okay, this is recycled toys, but these are really design items. And then they've taken it another step further and created, I think, only their 4th product other than the chair, and the storage unit and the table.
And the chairs are featured
in the book. And it's like, because this is a whole other level of saying we're talking about design, but then we're also talking about education and changing behavior. Yes. And so this is a story of the chair and how it's going through its life of becoming a new product. And it's actually, they're super cool light items. What's really amazing is that also for kids, I think there's a lot of products, even us, we have a lot of products for babies as well too, but it's a really interesting space to be in when kids and youth are starting to change their mind and their perception. And I think at this age where you're playing and you're drawing and you're creating and having this as a constant reminder in your life as well too, that impact and circularity and sustainability plays a role in our everyday lives. It feels very, very modern, and we're super excited to have the product.
Speaking of playing, I feel like you're hogging this Tomo. Yes.
We were super excited when we met this brand from Portugal. They're Carapau. And what is also interesting, I think consistent with the same ideology, is that we're having a conversation about all animals that are at various levels of extinction. So it's talking about animal conservation with kids, and then as a stuffed animal. And look at this. So this little Tomo, and it's telling your conservation status and information about the animals. And it's so whether it's the sloth or the Tomo, and they are so beautiful and so well constructed and all made with recycled wool, natural materials, and really an item that I feel like not only is your children are going to love, but it's just a great design item.
It's a great design item. I was going to say, I feel like this could be part of my adult tchotchke display. No children needed.
No children needed at all.
All right. Well, the Tomo is on the threatened scale right now, but we're going to have to do something
We're going to work to save the Tomo. And what Carapau does is that proceeds go towards conservation for each of the causes that are related here as well too. So it's super exciting for us again that if it's not only having the conversation about this is the effect, but then also making the impact, and how can we share that together with our users. It's a beautiful story.
When you think about your future goals for Goodee World, for the platform, what are those sort of big, hairy, audacious goals? What's next?
I think we still have, you brought it up before, Melissa, about weaving in the commerce with the story. And I think that is the future of retail, frankly. I think we're pushing up to the time when the audience is saying, you're almost going to have to give me a reason to be able to give you my trust or my email address or a reason to buy your products. And for us, what we think we have to do going forward is to always be there to tell the best stories, to be those editors in a world that needs a lot of editing, to be the ones that you can trust, so that when you come to the site, you know that we've done the rigorous assessment that we work on day to day inside our business. So I think we set up the company from day one, which is a really beautiful thing, to be able to start a company with the kind of rigor of saying all the products on the site meet a certain threshold. Now we have to just deliver on that promise day in and day out. I think the Shopify Plus platform helps us do that. I think that our relationship, which continues with Diff, helps us really challenge that opportunity to just keep getting better, so that we can deliver a better experience as well as a better interface for our partners, and grow as the technology grows as well too. I mean, we're live on the social channels, really trying to empower and amplify that conversation that we're having with our community. But we're also in the real world, in cities around the world, launching pop-up stores, so that Goodee never feels that far away from you, and that you'll be able to, meet with and spend time with the products and the people that have been doing such great work for so long, on our team and I suppose in the fields.
And with this human-centric approach, this emphasis on community, I know that if you go to the site today, you can read some amazing stories about the makers, but I'm sure you're also collecting some amazing stories from the community and from some of your customers who are now taking these products and I think ingraining them in their day-to-day lives.
Yeah, one of the things that I would say I'm most satisfied about since launch is we believe that after, obviously we curated the experience ourselves, and Byron and I have sort of this deep and long-standing relationship with design. But one of the things that we thought might happen was that the community at large would start telling us about things that we don't know.
All right, so we've been walking around the space looking at all of these beautiful pieces of art, textiles, children's furniture, cushions, and I've got to say, before we wrap up, I need you to tell me about this light. I love this light. Well, all of these lights are beautiful, but specifically, I'm in love with this one. So I know there's something really cool up with these lights. There's more that meets the eye.
Yeah, well, we're looking at it from underneath, and I love that you said this is where we're going to end, because it's a little bit also the starting point. When we developed the space, we wanted to have this central area, a central zone where we could collect people and collect ideas together. Everything from the books that are on the table that's built out of recycled materials on this workshop, but then the lighting, which is ultimately the area that kind of like is the central feature of the space. You love this one. We're presenting it as a chandelier. So up right now, that's 12 different lamps. There are all individual unique items, but it is possible to get that one item by itself as well too. So if you have one over top of one dining table, you want to just have that item, that is possible. So this is a company and designer. The company is called ACDO. They're based in Spain, and we are absolutely obsessed with their work because they're artists, but they're artists who are looking at how the designs that they're making could have an impact in the world. So what they did was work together with, and what we're seeing from underneath, because we're seeing the weaving technique, is that you might not recognize, but at the top, those are all recycled plastic bottles. Wow, yeah. So these are taking used plastic bottles, and then those are given to these artisans in Colombia who are doing this incredible weaving technique in an area of Colombia where there's an abundance of palm trees. This is a traditional craft and skill, done together by women in communities and done as groups together as well too, is how the weaving is normally done. And each of these are individual items that are telling their own unique story. So what becomes interesting for us is to bring a product like this that has a multitude of shapes, colors, and then having them as these items that someone could come into the Goodee World, into the universe, and select something that almost feels personalized to them as well too. And that's telling a story, because
two are the same.
No
right?
two are the same. I mean, of course, I suppose if they could make them close, but no two are the same, and the process is all hand woven with traditional techniques that are made by these Colombian artisans. So we absolutely love it for two. I mean, color is one of the most beautiful things to bring into an environment, and I think one of these things that we always notice when you're looking at Instagram is like we've kind of have this beige gray-ish look across a trend. And then we, clearly at Goodee, we really like the idea of color, light, and that these bring us not only comfort, but they add a lot of warmth, and it's this kind of collectivity to an environment as well too. So from a lighting system like this, it's beautiful. So and I'm obsessed with the one you picked as well too. It's really great. It's really, really beautiful. And then these again here are all, of course, with LED lighting as well too. So we're looking at lights that are having this conversation about the impact from how they're made by these women and artisans, the use of the plastic and PET bottle and giving a kind of a renewed life to that, and also reminding of the conversation about waste, and then for the lighting system itself being with LED at 90%, 90% less energy use in LEDs as well too. So a beautiful item.
So Dexter, thank you so much for the time, the insight into.
How did you do?
He did. Well, we'll talk about it after. We'll talk about it after. You did great. You did great. He did great. We'll talk about it after.
We'll talk about it
yeah, but thank you so much for the time and insight into the entire Goodee World project.
Yeah.
And Byron, thank you so much for giving us a tour of some of your favorite pieces in the Phi Center pop-up space. So we already know what's going on our wish list. So this has been awesome, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming to experience it live and direct with us, Melissa.
Yes, for the Diff experience.
The Diff experience.
The Diff experience.
Extravaganza.
Diff extravaganza. It's just different. It's just different.